Well, hello everyone. I am Billy Dees, and welcome to the podcast. I'm absolutely thrilled that you are here. With me today, I have Lenora Colarusso. How are you doing, Lenora?
I am doing well. How are you, Billy?
And if you're wondering what that cracking is in the background, she is in front of a fireplace, which
I'm
is
in front of a live fireplace. So we're going to explain that whole thing as we go into our subject for tonight. So,
okay. And our subject will be today simply, hey, it's Thanksgiving, and it's great to have a holiday and all this other kind of thing, but it's also very important to remember being grateful. And something happened to kindness along the way here recently. I'm not exactly sure what happened to kindness, but it seems to be sort of a forgotten concept. So we're going to talk about that a little bit today. If you are new to the podcast, first of all, thank you for being here. You can find the Billy D's podcast pretty much anywhere podcasts are found, including Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, on down the line. We're on Stitcher, TuneIn, all of those. And I got to tell you, too, we're on some new ones. I'm getting a lot of listens from Castbox. We're also available on that one, and Podchaser. That's been a recent one for us where we're getting a lot of listens. And I haven't heard of this one until recently. It's called Geo7. Have you heard of that one yet, Lenora?
never. No, I haven't even heard of the few that you mentioned.
All right. Well, it is an Indian service. It's actually headquartered in Mumbai, India, and huge. I mean, millions of subscribers through that region. And I don't know how many listens I get through there. I can't really track that. I do get a lot of listens, and I just want to mention too, from Europe. And that doesn't surprise me because English is a requirement in a lot of those countries. So it's not uncommon for me to get people listening from the Ukraine or something like that. And I get a lot of listens from the Russian Federation, which is interesting to me. Australia has been another one that has popped up. Canada, that one's not so surprising. And I still get a ton of listens. Now, this is on the audio platforms. Most of my listens come from the audio platforms, Apple Podcasts, and so on. I can do those live as well, in addition to the videos, but the vast majority of listens are on demand. But Mountain View, California is huge. Now, I'm pretty well known in Ohio, so it's not surprising. I get a lot of listens in Ohio, but Columbus has come on strong lately too, which is kind of cool. So I want to say hello to all of those people. Every single one of you is appreciated. We are live on the Billy D's podcast on Facebook, YouTube, and also Twitch. I'm new to Twitch, so I don't know how many listens or views I'm going to get on Twitch, but
I don't know anything about Twitch.
it is basically a service that caters to live streaming, and it's very big with gamers. But a lot of commentators, podcasts, interviews, all that is a category on Twitch. So I
Mhm.
figured, hey, you know what? I might as well get myself on there. I came late to YouTube and I came late to Facebook, not so much for other things, but for the podcast I did. I was always very audio oriented, very radio oriented, which is good. But there was a need for some video. Some the listeners wanted to come in and check out the visuals, behind the scenes type stuff. And quite frankly, I think with COVID, there seems to be a new hunger for live content. So we're doing a few more lives. A lot of my in-depth interviews and programs and things like that are pre-recorded, but things like this, you are a co-host today, Lenora. You are not a guest. You are a guest co-host. So if you want to ask me something, you go right ahead. Lenora has her own podcast, and she deals largely with, how would you say, people that have gone through something and they want to inspire others that they can overcome it. Is that a good way to talk about your podcast?
Yeah, you know, overcoming adversities, how they overcame them. We all have our stories, right?
Yeah, sure.
So, where do we end up to where we are now? And through adversity, some people end up helping others. overcome their adversities from overcoming their adversities, or they just want to tell their story. So my hashtag is time to tell your story, and hashtag every story is important,
Yeah.
because some people feel like just getting it off their chest feels really good. And I
Yeah.
give them the option. I've had a couple of people do this where I've recorded them, like I'm gonna put it out on my, on all the platforms and on YouTube. But then if they decide they don't want me to do that, I just give them access on YouTube and they can watch it themselves. And
Oh, that's great.
yeah, I just have it. So it's just something that they feel good about speaking their
Yeah.
truth.
Yeah.
Yeah, it started out where it was just a health and wellness podcast. I'm an RN holistic health coach, so I do nutritional counseling and personal training and yoga and Reiki, and I'm a registered nurse. So it started out that way about a year and a half ago, and took a hiatus, and I was on a guest on another podcast for about 6 episodes. He changed the name of it. It was Marty B, the Good Vibe Show, and I went on there just talking about health and wellness. I was on every week for about, I think, 6 or 7 segments, and it just fired me up again
Yeah.
to for the podcast land again. So I do it on my own, and you can tell if you watch it that it's not like how Billy does it. But
Oh,
it's
well.
okay. But it's okay though, because I'm having a lot of fun, and I know I'm helping a lot of people because of DMs and people who want to be on the show to tell their story. And it just branched out that way from, I want to say, from TikTok, from that
Yeah.
platform, from telling my story also. So I was on your podcast telling my story, which was a really good, I think one of the better interviews that I've ever had.
Oh, good.
Um, I will talk about Billy because you could tell by his voice and his demeanor. He's just a really good interviewer. He's got a really good voice for it. You're a really good guy. So
Well, thank you, and I appreciate that. I always tell people I have a face for radio. That is for sure.
face for radio.
But
That's a good one.
yeah, it is.
That's not true, Billy. You're handsome. I'm kidding.
Well, thank you. But we talked about the fact that I have a little bit more production value because I have to sell myself as that. I produce radio commercials. I produce this, that, and the other thing for other people. So I have to have a little bit more weight there. But really, in actuality, for any individual, and this certainly speaks volumes for you, is it's the content that matters. And you have a way of reaching through the screen and touching people. You have an inherent goodness about you that you can't teach people that. The stuff I know you can learn if you really want to, but to be a good person and to be that you have that healing nature about you. There's just some people that are healers. I have a cousin who she's a doctor and she ended up teaching in medical school. And I asked her one day, I said, are the guys who get, not just guys, but guys and women, um, are the people who get the best grades always going to be the best doctors? And she said, no. She goes, and it's one of the things that's very troubling. Some people, because of memorization, know what the answers are that you want, but they're not naturally good healers.
Mm-hmm.
And you have that way about you emotionally and intellectually that you provide a comfort, and that comes through. You don't need the best equipment, you don't need all that. When you're dealing with great content like what you have, you don't need all that. So with that being said, let's I know you have some places that you want to go with this. One of the things that I've noticed lately is the kindness thing. It used to be a lot more when you went out to one place or another. People were generally polite, hello, excuse me, whatever. And now they seem like they're looking for a fight.
Mm-hmm.
I was in the grocery store. Man, this was probably about 2 or 3 weeks ago, and it was real busy. And because of the spacing, because of the COVID, I didn't notice where the end of the line was. And I'm going around with my cart trying to find it. And all of a sudden I hear this, "Hey, buddy, the end of the line is back there."
Mhm.
And that "Hey, buddy," that's a bad.
Mhm.
That's the type of phrase, I always say one of these days I'm going to be in a bad mood and I'm going to be one "Hey, buddy" away from being on death row.
Mm.
You're going to
No, I
hear
know. I know.
you're gonna hear a story about some guy in Ohio, some rude guy that got hit over the head with a jar of pickles,
I hope
and
not. I hope not.
and you're gonna say, "Oh no, that was Billy."
Yeah, but
Um,
Billy, you're conscious of it, so
yeah,
you
but you
need
know what
to.
was interesting about that story was I swallowed up every hateful comment or every bit of aggression that I had. And I went, "Well, hey, buddy, I really want to thank you for directing me in the right place because I was a little confused, and I really appreciate you, offering me this information."
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
and he was like, uh, okay, yeah, no problem." He almost was surprised
Right.
that I was nice.
Mhm.
Um, and I don't know what that says.
I have a
Wha-
comment for that though, like
uh,
the phrase "kill him with kindness."
yeah,
People, the way you came back was killing that guy with kindness, right? So
yeah,
he responded in a way where it was like he was dumbfounded because you were nice about it.
yeah,
It's almost like what you said. People are almost looking for a fight, you
yeah,
know.
yeah,
Well, he was expecting probably something totally different from you,
yeah.
and you turned around and you killed him with kindness, and he didn't even know how to react. But you did a good thing because he was kind in return. Correct?
Yeah. Yes, he was.
Yeah.
He was actually you could tell his disposition changed right away.
Hmm.
And one of the reasons why I'm bringing this up now is there's the politics has been very contentious. The thing with the wearing a mask has been very contentious. I don't know how the mask thing became political. But there's people just daring you to say something to them when they're not wearing a mask. How did we get here? How do you believe it got to where it is? And I really want this podcast. There's some people that I know that are listening tonight that are really down. They're down with the COVID. Their lives have been turned upside down. A lot of them are in education. They've had to go to online. They don't feel that they're teaching their students as well. A lot of people who are in the medical professions, they don't feel that they're contacting their patients as well. And I happen to work for a nonprofit. I work in the marketing department in the mental health field. And this is not doing well for anybody who has substance abuse disorders or mental health. Sitting around by yourself all day with a six pack of beer is really a bad recipe for what's going to happen in the future.
Hmm.
So I want this. I know you always seem to have this, not so much inspiring like the Green Bay Packers type inspiration. You have more of a very subtle, life inspiring calmness about you. And I'm going to kind of hand it to you to this point. How are you dealing with people that are suffering from these things right now?
Well, this may not be the answer for everybody. That might not be the typical answer,
Yeah,
but to me, honestly, I feel it comes from everybody being in their homes for so long, and a lot of it has to do with giving themselves permission to eat like crap and be unhealthy and make that excuse where, okay, when this is over, then I'm going to go and work out, or then I'm going to eat healthy, or then. And what I say all the time, and I know this is probably not the answer you were expecting,
it's
but
an
I
answer.
feel that a lot of our moods and our attitudes and the way we're acting is because we are giving ourselves permission to be really unhealthy right now.
I would not argue with that at all.
And even the healthy people are having a hard time sticking with their health ways of
Yes.
being,
Yeah.
because it's almost like an excuse. Well, and to be real, Billy, this could go on for years. We don't know.
Sure. Sure.
Okay.
Mhm.
So if you went on for years eating like crap and not exercising and not going out in nature, of course everything's going to go in a downward spiral.
Mhm.
And the people have issues, mental health issues. That's why it's getting even worse, because just like you said, they're sitting home and they're self-medicating with,
Mhm.
alcohol, drugs, whatever. And we're not advocating for more healthy ways. Okay, so we can't go to the gym. So what do we do then?
Yeah.
What do we do? What can we do? Um, Promoting healthy eating. Oh my God, that is my whole foundation of my teaching.
Yeah.
Before even exercising is getting healthy food into your body
Yeah.
in order to think better, in order to be kinder, in order to, when you're in a supermarket, be able to deal with other people better. I know that sounds crazy to some, but if you're not feeding yourself healthy food, if you're eating shit food, I'm sorry. If you
That's okay.
are we allowed? Oh, if your blood sugar is going to be going up and down, your moods are going to be going up and down. You can't tell me that now people are not doing that more.
Oh, there's no doubt.
And that's like their diet.
Yeah.
So from that foundation, that's what's coming out into the world.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, that's all connected. So
It's
that
connected.
unkindness, that lashing out at other people, not being able to keep yourself stable, not wanting to go out and even walk or do something outside, is because you're not giving your body the nourishment that it needs.
Yeah. Well, the only thing that I would add to that is some of the people that I know who are struggling are generally I don't know if they're as fanatical as you are about your health. I mean, you're in perfect condition, but a lot of these people do eat fairly well. They do try to exercise and all that, but the isolation
Hmm.
is something that we as people, as human beings, just do not deal with it well.
Hmm.
That's been proven time and time again. It's present in primates and it's other things. That's why when you're in prison and they put you in isolation, that's why it's so bad.
Hmm.
Okay.
Hmm.
And you have a lot of people that, because of COVID, let's say they don't have the ability to interact with other people. A lot of their family members and all that might be high risk, either for getting it or giving it to them. And their options are very limited in terms of what they can get from TV. And of course, what you get from TV is there's if you're channel surfing cable, forget it. I have a good buddy who quit watching the news and he deleted all of his social media
Okay.
because he felt that was just contributing to his depression and other things. And when you don't
Okay.
have that social structure, I would totally agree that letting yourself deteriorate physically is certainly a problem. But the isolation that's coming with this is not helping either.
Yeah, it all adds up. It's all adding up, and I would say the close second to the nutrition and exercise, or close third, is your support and community is definitely way up there in the pillars of good health and wellness. And a lot of people that I've talked to on my podcast put TikTok like as their support group.
Yeah.
I mean, it is social media, but we got to do what we got to do right now.
Yeah. Yeah. And you know what?
So,
The only caveat I would add to that is be careful.
yeah, you have to, and we've said this before. Yeah, definitely be careful.
Yeah.
Be smart about it. And there are ways to do that. And I know that they have different things on the phone that you could do to keep from, you mean tracking and all of
Yes. Yes.
that? Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, just be careful, and there's a lot of people out there that want to play into a lot of the vulnerabilities that people are putting out there. That's the only thing that makes me nervous about people wearing some of their issues on their sleeve
Mm,
publicly on social media.
hmm.
and you know, it used to be this is a little routine I always used to do. It used to be that your medical records were very private. Now it's the bio in your social media. I'm suffering from this,
I
that,
know. But
and
you
I'm
know
on this
what?
and this and medication. And
But you know, Billy, I've seen a lot more good than bad, I have to
yeah,
say, and I know that it's have saved because I've had DMs from people saving their almost their life, being able to connect like
yeah,
with me personally, just because I spent more time with them. Um, I'm one of these people where I'm like, if I feel good energy, and I'm not saying this true with everybody, 'cause you do have to be careful,
yeah,
but there, you got to do what you got to do right now. Support and community is so important, and unfortunately, just like you said, some people don't have that family.
yes, that's right.
Some people, right, are living in isolation. So there are like we've mentioned this on the podcast I was with you before, the Facebook groups. Um, there are resources,
Yeah,
and I would say find that support.
yeah,
Even if it's one person who can support you, that one person can be gold to you.
yeah.
So,
Well, I would also encourage people to check into their communities if they really feel that they're having a hard time. Your local NAMI, for example, is a great resource. There's a number of other, uh, you know, depending on where you're at, just a little bit of 5 minutes on your computer, you can probably find some resources from people that are willing to help.
yeah.
And I'll just say this too is, because I want to talk to you about being grateful. That's the next thing I want to talk to you about. But I do want to say this too. If you feel that you need help, there's never a bad time to ask for help.
Mm-mm.
Here again in the circles that I run in, one of the things we always stress with mental health and for people that have been suffering with addiction. And for those that may not know, I'm from Ohio. We're one of the opioid hot centers, and working in marketing for nonprofits who treat this, it's different than marketing for a for profit. Like Steve Jobs, for example, created a marketplace by giving computers a personality. So, and that was for the idea of selling computers. This is a little different. When you're in this field, what marketing is really about is raising awareness. And I believe we've made some inroads with mental health. A lot of the stigmas that we've had about mental health are getting better. And I enjoyed movies like Psycho and all those others as much as anybody else. But what those things did over the years is they really created a false impression of what mental health and mental disorders are like.
Mhm.
Okay, your chances of being a victim if you are suffering from a mental disorder, your chances of being a victim are 1,000 times higher than you are to be Norman Bates. Okay. The vast majority of people suffering from mental health are going to be likely a victim of crime. A lot of times they're victimized by their own families. They're taken advantage of. Their life savings are depleted. And don't, I always tell people if you hurt your elbow, you go to the doctor. If you're not feeling emotionally well and you feel that you're possibly at risk, get help. There's resources available in your community that will do that. And speaking of the other stigma that I often go up against with substance issues is that a lot of people, especially now with COVID, they'll say, "Well, I didn't make I lost my job or I whatever because of this COVID. This wasn't my fault. You made a choice." And that's also here again in Ohio. I'm sure, we're talking about millions of people. I'm sure there are people who have lived reckless lifestyles and have partied themselves into addiction through carelessness. I'm sure that's happened, but that is not the path to addiction. Okay, here in Ohio. For one thing, we were one of the original pill mills. A lot of people developed their addiction from prescriptions. And the other thing is that almost always these addictions have what we call co-occurring conditions, which means they're trying to alleviate mental health. With opioids in particular, the users very often have a history of child abuse, sexual abuse, and so on. So the path to addiction is different for everyone, but it's usually something that happened over time. And you're a nurse, you know this, that once those addictions develop, the patterns in your brain change.
Mhm.
Okay. It's not like, oh, I want to be like this.
Mhm.
One of my buddies who's is a great counselor. One of the things he tells me all the time when he's confronted with this stigma is that, people that feed these addictions aren't taking these things to feel good. They're taking them not to feel bad.
Mhm.
Okay, so there's so many underlying conditions there, and I just want anyone listening to this, whether it be mental health, a reliance on substances, whether it's alcohol or whatever, you're not alone.
Mm-mm.
There are thousands and indeed millions of people out there, and help is available. Okay.
Mhm.
It's just a matter of doing a quick search in your community and finding those resources. If nothing else, NAMI can probably point you in the right direction. If whatever you have going on isn't a good fit for what they can do, they can point you in the right direction. And so many of the emergency departments now have facilities that will point you in the right direction too. Sometimes it can be just as easy as stopping at and asking a police officer or asking a fireman or something. So don't be afraid to ask for help. That's one of
Mhm.
the key things that I always tell people about. They let these things go way too long because they're afraid they're going to lose their job and other things. And the fact of the matter is that if you volunteer, I can't speak for every employer that's out there. But if the chances are way better that if you go to your employer and say, "Hey, look, remember when I broke my ankle last year? These pain pills are starting to become a problem. I've enrolled in this program. I'm getting better." Chances are your employer is not going to say that much. But if you wait to get arrested, or if you fail a drug test, now coming clean is not going to mean as much.
Mhm.
So yes, get help. And I really feel bad that we have these stigmas that people have to be afraid to come forward. What's your attitude? I'm sure you've encountered stigmas. We've talked about people who have had trials and hardships and traumas of one kind or another. A lot of people have this stigma about them that they did something to deserve it.
Yeah.
How do you combat that? How do you handle people's ingrained attitudes about these things?
I don't know. That's a loaded question right now. I don't quite know how I handled that. I had it myself from my abuse. I mean, we talked about this, and I
Yeah,
felt like people judged me because of the whole situation, because he was a priest, and like, why would you let it go on? And your parents were right there, and there were people like that. That's why it took so long for me to tell my story.
yeah.
So
Teaching people.
the only thing I can say is just what you just said for the last 10 minutes, which is great. I love that you're talking about this. Don't be afraid. There are resources. Don't be afraid to speak up. We're more
Yep,
alike than we are different.
absolutely.
Um, that I know for sure,
Yeah,
that we are way more alike than we're different.
yeah, absolutely.
I'm not like dwelling in my misery with other people, but it's comforting in a
Yeah,
way, you know. So I'm sorry that I
it's tough.
can't. Yeah, it's really tough because
It's very hard to teach empathy, and one of the things that I've always said is, unfortunately, we don't feel it until it happens to us.
mhm,
Yeah, and I'm old enough that I've had these things play out with a lot of my people who are my age who have had kids. And when it's somebody else's kid, well, that's because their parents didn't do this and their parents didn't do that,
right,
and they did it
right,
until it happens to their kid. And then it's a
mhm,
little different. Oh, well,
right,
Johnny, it's a little different because, and
mhm,
we don't have that empathy. We don't have that understanding, whether it's having a child who's being picked on because they're quote unquote a little different in the LGBTQ community or whatever it is. We don't have that empathy until it happens in our house.
Mhm.
And the one thing I always, we're talking about being kindness to having kindness today. I think one of the things that you can really do to be kind to people when they're going through something that you don't understand is reach out to them on some way when they're trying to talk to you, or if you have an opportunity to talk to them and say, maybe I don't understand what you're going through, but I've been through other bad times. What can we talk about to make you feel better? What direction can I lead you in? And sometimes just having a compassionate ear can mean all.
Be a good listener.
Yes, sometimes that is the absolute best thing you can do for anyone,
Mhm.
is not judge them and just listen to their story, and whether you can relate to it or not doesn't matter. But I generally feel that you should be able to put, at least to some degree, one of the things I've always said, and this is where I know I come out of left field all, but if Hawking can envision in his mind with great mathematical precision what it's like to be on the edge of a black hole, if he can do that when he was suffering from ALS and everything else, okay,
Mhm.
then I can understand the problem that you're going through with your child. Is it
Mhm.
really that hard?
Mhm.
If he
It is.
can do that, well, what's
Mhm.
so hard about understanding the problems that you are going through?
You
And
don't even have to understand. You just be a good listener.
yes,
Be a
absolutely.
good be a good receiver.
Yes.
Receive with openness
You
and
talk
love and love.
and that's something I wanted to mention too. You and I had a conversation before about people saying to each other that they love you. Okay. And you talk about that. That's something that you like to do with people, especially when you care about them or whatever. It's important to say I love you. And a lot of people are a little put off by that. But one of the things I heard on TikTok that to me was very profound is, if you can hate somebody for no reason, if you can say, I hate you because you support Trump or you support Biden or whatever, I hate you because of that. If you can hate somebody for no reason, why can't you love them for no reason?
Bingo.
You know?
Mhm.
And I feel that it's really not that hard to say. When you get to know someone, and it doesn't necessarily have to be anything in regard to how you normally think of love. Just caring about another human being's spirit, their essence, what makes them human, the part of them that thinks and feels and desires and all that. Just say, hey, you know what? I love you. And men won't say that to each other for a lot of reasons. And sometimes men are afraid to say it to a woman because they think that, oh, maybe she's going to take it the wrong way. And there's always a reason not to do it when it comes to love, but we don't have any hesitation when it comes to hate. Nothing stops us from voicing that opinion. Um,
So
with think
wise. So wise,
I
Billy.
don't know. I don't know if I'm wise. I
No,
don't.
it's true. It
It's a
is
wise
that.
thought.
But I
Uh,
know exactly what you were talking about from the TikTok. The whole it's so easy for us to hate, and you know,
yeah,
yeah, you just never know who you're gonna who you're gonna change just by saying I love you
yeah.
or I care or sending. I make it a point to send texts to people, random texts,
That's
pretty
great.
much, or I even FaceTimed you out of the blue.
Yes.
I was doing that. Now I'm doing that. Now that's my new thing because not that FaceTime is a new thing, but I don't know why. I just came upon it. And
Yeah.
I'm like, let me just FaceTime this person. So
Yeah.
I'll just like,
Yeah.
hello.
All right.
And like people that I haven't spoken to, like, oh my God, hey, how you doing? I can't, I've had conversations that were like an hour long
Yeah.
on FaceTime. It makes them feel so good.
Yeah.
We don't need much. We don't need much.
Speaking of not needing much, you talked today. You called me because you had concerns about our episode today. You had some technical issues because you didn't have any power.
Right, right.
Eh,
So I want to explain to your audience.
sure.
Well, now my fire's going out, so it's even darker now. But my light, I live in the boondocks in Hillsborough, New Jersey, and whenever there's a wind or something, the lights go out, and then I am on well and septic. So why did that happen?
What happen?
I'm like in a big picture now.
Yeah, yeah. I thought, well, since you were talking, I'll let people see you. You don't like that.
Oh, okay. So I'm on well and septic, and so when that goes out, then there's no water. So I told him, I'm like, oh, I have a light. I can put a light in the den, and we have the hotspot and the fire going. And you were like, okay, we'll do that. So that's what's going on over here, you guys.
Yeah.
But it it happened on the day we're talking about gratefuls, and I'm just grateful. Hey, I'm sitting in front of a fire, right?
Yep.
Um, it's not that cold out, so it's not like I'm in a cold house or anything. I have a roof over my head. It's all good. And you know what else happened today that I thought was really funny? I went back on my Facebook memories, and from 2014, what popped up? It's 7 p.m. Did you do your three gratefuls yet? And this is what I printed it out because I thought it was so funny because
Okay.
I have been doing gratefuls forever. I am the if you ask any of my children, any five, I started doing gratefuls at night at it was always 7 p.m. And it probably came from and I've been doing gratefuls a long time. Um and it's when in the hardest of times you got to really dig deep and find them. I can't tell you how many times that there were times I was just so pissed off. Me and my husband were having issues or whatever, and my kids. I have two kids who have epilepsy, and there were things that were not going well.
Right.
But I would have to sit and find them. So the rule was at 7 p.m. Whoever was at my house had to do three gratefuls, whether we're sitting around the table or whatever, and we couldn't repeat each other's gratefuls.
Okay.
So it would add up to like there would be so many great conversations from that. Tears, laughter, like we'd spend I don't know how long doing our gratefuls. So if it was just the seven of us, five kids, two us, sometimes it would take a while. And
Mhm.
we'd do gratefuls that we were for the day. It'd be just I'm grateful that I woke up and I had a really good cup of coffee, or be very simple.
Right.
But then the next person can't repeat the first person. So we go around the table. There was one year, well, we did it every day, and everybody, oh God, mom, because sometimes my kids didn't want to do it.
Oh,
But so that would be my program for the gratefuls, the three gratefuls, and everybody knew me about that. So everybody on Facebook, anybody who came to eat dinner with us, I heard from a lot of people. You changed the way I thought about it because now we do gratefuls at night, and we do three gratefuls at night. But one time we did it at Thanksgiving at my mother-in-law's, and there were probably like 50 people around the table. And my husband stood up and he's like, I would like to. Lenora has been doing gratefuls every night and it's changed our lives.
hmm,
Um, I want to go around the table. We don't have to do three, but if everybody can just say one thing that they're grateful for. And I didn't know he was going to do this,
yeah.
but I've made a pretty big impact on a lot of people with that, and I didn't know it.
Yeah.
But nobody complained, and as a matter of fact, we ended up everybody did three gratefuls,
Hmm.
and the tears that flowed, and it was such a beautiful thing. I'm not going to say a moment because it took us an hour and a half
Yeah.
to
Sure.
gratefuls, but it was so beautiful and so important, and just put everything in perspective about things. And
Yeah.
so gratefuls just they can change your life, but they're like everything else. They're something you just have to do as a habit. It's something it's repetition, and they will absolutely change your life. Along with meditation and yoga. And I don't know
Mhm.
if your audience watches the story that the things that I went through in my life. Med- gratefuls were one of the other things that really changed my life. So when you
Yeah.
ask me, And you said our topic is going to be grateful. And I was like, hey, I'm the grateful queen. So not only now, I brought down few of my journals. Like my son made me this for Christmas one year. He drew my daily gratefuls. They all know me for my
Yeah.
grateful.
From your gratefuls. That's awesome.
And my friend, a grateful journal she gave me, and a grateful book that's blank pages that I'll write all my gratefuls in. So you write them, you say them, you do them. They will change your life. Also, if you have an iPhone, what I do every morning, I'll go running every morning. It's just something I love to do. I'm not saying you have to run. I love running, but I'll go out and I do the voice memos on the iPhone.
Oh, okay.
So you just press that little red button. And I don't know where I think it was Oprah Winfrey who had this idea, or somebody named Jake Ducey, who he's an inspirational speaker. And I love this idea. So he said, record 5 gratefuls that you're grateful for, as simple as anything for that morning, for that day,
Yeah.
whatever, and record 5 after that and act like they've already happened,
Hmm.
things that you want to happen. So, say a grateful could be, I'm grateful that I'm almost done with my run. That would be one of my 5 gratefuls. I'm grateful for the strength of my body. That's
Yeah.
pretty much almost every day, because sometimes I just don't believe what I put my body through. And then for the grateful, I'm grateful for the beautiful podcast that I have with Billy tonight, and
Hmm.
that it was one of my gratefuls today.
Awesome.
And then you go back to them, and you would be amazed at the amount of gratefuls that you've said that you wish to become reality became reality.
Yeah.
And it's just like it's habit. I have done that for years now.
Hmm.
So it takes all of what, 3 minutes
Yeah.
to do. So it's repetition. It's digging deep when you feel like you can't find them. That's really important, because I can't, like back in the day, we'd get our heat turned off, or we'd get our electric turned off for some reasons. We'll get
Yeah.
into that. But my husband would sit down with me and go, "Come on," and I get pissed at him, and I'd be like, "Ugh, I'm not doing this tonight." He's like, practice what you preach, because this is where we have to, and you know what? You find one.
Yeah.
You find one. So it's repetition. You got to keep doing it. You can write them, you can say them, you know.
Yeah. Let me ask you about this too. One more thing. Another concept I want to ask you about is before we had this second rise in COVID, some of the people that I work with during the day were suggesting went during our weekly meetings to do a random act of kindness. And it can be something as simple as passing someone in the hallway and say, hey, you're doing a great job, or whatever. And of course, a lot of people mentioned paying it forward when you're in the drive-through and things like that. And they talked about not only does it make the other person feel good, but it makes you feel good. You
Yes.
know, it works both ways.
Hmm.
Are those kinds of exercises something you've done and something you would recommend?
All the time. As a matter of fact, you also say, I wanted to give you something, Billy. Okay. I do this on my TikToks. I give away things. Like, it's not for me. It's not to give back to me. It's because I love doing it from my heart. It feels so good. But say I wanted to give you and send you something, you're like, no, 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 I really don't want you to do that.
Yeah.
You have to be a good receiver. This is where I mean a
Mm,
good receiver, because it's almost insulting to the giver if you're not a good receiver. So
sure. I know what you mean.
just be open to that, to receiving. I had this happen. Somebody was on my live on TikTok, and he said, he was my moderator, and they just take care of people that aren't polite on the live, and they take care of them. They get them off my live and they mute them or whatever. And I don't know this guy. I don't know him. I just know he comes in. I know his name, but I know he's very kind, and he always says really nice things to me. And he said, I said something, and he said, "Oh, I can't. My dog ate my headphones." And I said, "What? Send me your address. I want to send you headphones." I said, "Amazon does a really good job. It'll get
Yeah.
you there. It'll be." Oh no, no way. You're not doing that for me. I said, "I want to do that for you. Let me do that." But he was just, no, 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 no. And I'm like, please be a good receiver.
Yeah.
It makes me feel good. And I ended up sending him the headphones. And he said, "You have a friend for life. You don't know what you have restored my faith in humanity."
Yeah.
So
That's the value.
that's just an example. It's like you just never know.
Yeah.
Now, I'm doing it because right now I'm able to do it. I may not be able to do stuff like that. Like I was giving away a mug that says everything's gonna be effing okay.
I
And
remember that.
right, and I put it up on Facebook, on TikTok just because I got it from my daughter for my birthday.
Yeah.
And I got so many comments. "Oh my God, I love that mug. I love that mug." And I'm like, "Okay, I'm gonna send it to you." "What? No, you're
Yeah.
not." And I'm like, "Yes, I am." So I sent it to two people, and it just felt so good. I was like,
Yeah.
"Oh my God, this is gonna make them so happy." I just imagine them opening it and sipping from it. And then I did a TikTok, a giveaway. Like
Yeah.
I did it like a contest. All right, just comment on here and then. But for sure. I mean, if I could do it, they're not real expensive items,
Yeah.
but
They mean a lot.
just like what I said, if you don't have the money, just like what I said, text people randomly. "I'm thinking of you.
Yes.
I'm grateful for you." You know, you don't believe me. Come on, if you got a text like that out of the
Sure.
blue, right. So it
It means
doesn't
the
have to
world.
cost money. These things don't have to cost money,
Right.
you know? FaceTime doesn't cost money. But it makes people feel really good.
Yes. You're absolutely
So,
right.
yeah.
And we miss those little things.
Mhm.
We're always too busy. There's always an excuse why we don't do it. And just going a little bit out of your way, just a little eensy teensy bitsy bit out of your way can mean the world in someone else's life.
It could. It
Well,
could.
it's always wonderful to talk to you. I hope you know that you can come on here anytime. All you got to do is say, "Hey, Bill, let's do something in the next week or so," and you'll have it. If Lenora mentioned her story. If you are interested in going back and checking that out, simply go to the playlist on anywhere you find the Billy D's podcast, and it's listed there. It's a couple episodes back at this point, but it's there. You're welcome to listen to it. It's available on YouTube, and it's also available on Apple Podcast, Spotify, on down the line. Now, for your own podcast, what's the name of your podcast, and where can it be found?
It's a new dawn, and it's
Okay.
on YouTube. It's on every major platform also. Um, my website, it's on the links are on my website also. It's a new dawn nj.com.
Awesome. What is your screen name on TikTok?
Uh, it's a new dawn,
For you, I
the
believe.
number 4, and then YOU. Because
Yes.
I changed it, but yeah, and you can also look up Lenora Colarusso too. I think that you'll find it that way
Yeah,
too.
if you do a search in TikTok, it should find you either way.
Hmm.
Lenora has an incredible following on
No, I
TikTok.
don't.
Oh, yes.
I mean, I love my followers. Don't get me wrong, but in TikTok land, come on, Bill.
Well, yeah. All right. Well, that's a loaded statement because
Uh, I,
compared to the dancing and the type of stuff, sure, but for the kind of content that you do, which is very detailed, it's very heartfelt. To really get the grasp of what you do, you can't really just watch 60 seconds. You have to watch several of your videos, and I notice you do the lives. You really enjoy the lives. You're on
I,
there a lot.
I do. Well, I try to interact, and I appreciate people who take the time to follow me. And a live is just something I like to do to connect to them. And then, if you're gonna follow me, I wanna interact with you, and I wanna let you know that this is really who I am. I mean, I do a little bit of everything.
Yeah,
I went on, I started wanting to just promote my RN holistic health coaching thing because COVID, took me for a loop like a lot of
sure.
people.
Absolutely. Yep.
But then I felt like not real. I don't know. I felt like I didn't want to be like an advertisement at all. So I started doing some lip syncing and having fun, but adding my some exercises and talking about the spiritual aspects that I, believe in and preach and my yoga and stuff like that. So I've added a little bit of everything, you know. So
Yeah.
I'm happy with it. I'm not like I don't have one just honed in niche. But
You have great content, and she's being modest. She has thousands of followers, and well deserved. You do great content, and if you want to hear, I catch as many of your podcasts as I can. Some very heartfelt discussions on your podcast, Lenora. You do fantastic work,
thank
and
you.
that's why it's always great to have you on this program.
Thank you. That means so much to me, Billy. I'm not blowing smoke up your ass either when I tell you you are primo uno with the podcast land,
Oh
and
well, thank you.
you're just a nice guy. So
It's not that
thank
hard for
you.
me to be nice for an hour at a time.
Well, I know we all have our things. Come on,
Yeah. Well, I
but
appreciate that. That's very, very kind of
you
you.
are
Very
a kind
generous.
person. You are a kind person. Come on.
All right. Well, all right. Well, thank you, Lenora. I appreciate that. You're very generous with your comments to me. For those of you that want to follow me, probably my social media home is Twitter. Twitter has worked very well for me. I kind of feel that podcasting and Twitter kind of go hand in hand. It's very topical, it's very real time. So do check me out at Billy D's on Twitter. As I mentioned, we now have a Billy D's podcast Facebook page, a Billy D's podcast YouTube channel, which has social media elements to it, and we're on Twitch now too. So I'm anxious to see how that develops. This will only be our second podcast that was put to Twitch. That's how new our Twitch channel is. So I will see how that develops over the coming weeks and months. And of course, in the meantime, our on-demand listens, I have to say humbly, are really, really strong. Lenora, your episodes always do very well. So when this gets switched, I process the audio a little different because I'm an audio guy. So I take the audio from this, I punch it up, make it a little thicker, more radio sounding. And your episode did fantastic. It did well on YouTube, but the listens from all around the world, all through the
Oh,
country.
really? Oh,
Yes,
I didn't know
absolutely.
that. Good.
Yeah, yeah, and I can't wait, to put your content out there anytime because it's always a pleasure to have you. Thank you very much for being here.
Okay, Billy. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Awesome. Thank you, Lenora. Coming up in the coming weeks here at the Billy D's podcast, we are doing the lives as much as possible on Monday nights. And a lot of the in depth interviews with authors and all that are lined up. They're ready to go. We haven't produced them yet. Some of the authors that we have lined up have had travel problems and things going on due to COVID. So, but we do have some authors coming up too. So in the meantime, though, be sure you subscribe to the Billy D's podcast wherever you find podcasts, and follow me on Twitter. Tweet me. You just have to be nice. That's all I ask. Do you want to say anything? Any last goodbye for tonight from you, Lenora?
Hashtag be kind all the time.
What a great one. Be kind. Hashtag be kind all the time. I'll leave everybody with that. Thank you very much for checking out our podcast today, and we will be back next week.